Thank you for being here. This is an extra live stream I'm making. The other live stream will start in 2 hours, so this live stream is going to be maybe like 40 minutes or 50 minutes. So if you're here, please let me know in the live chat you're here, please. I just made a live stream outside, but go to the buffers that have to go to my phone subscription. I had to end it after only like 4 minutes. The live stream was called Seasons of Peace. I'll do my best to recreate it a little later. But first, this live stream, within 2 hours, the other live stream about that cold case for the Netherlands. Right now, in this live stream, I want to address the following. Society demands blind support from you. Why do I say society? Because this is the same attitude narcissists have. But because society is a narcissistic construct, we often recognize it when society is doing it. When the group enacts this collective narcissism or the societal narcissism, we often recognize it because it's the group doing it. But there's no difference between when an individual narcissist is doing it or when the group is enacting this narcissistic expectation. It's the same thing. The difference is with the individual, you can get away. The group will seek to sabotage you and harm you through persecution and retaliation when you don't give in to their narcissistic expectations. That's the difference. But first, if you're here, please let me know in the live chat, please. Thank you very much. I'll give you 30 seconds and I'll continue. All right, look. Blind support. Hey, Dixon, thank you for being here. Blind support. Look, there's nothing wrong with supporting someone or supporting a cause. That's good. But the cause you're supporting, it must be accounted for. Look, if someone wants to build a house, right, because he wants to have a place for him and his family, that is a noble cause that is worthy to support. But then that's the end goal. How does he want to build a house? If he wants to build a house in some field, but you know that that field contains a lot of toxins in the soil, then you should tell the individual, listen, man, I know you want to build a house for you and your family, but this location where you want to build your house is not a good location, man, because the soil is contaminated. It's going to harm you when you live around here. So the individual must thank you. Yes, he must thank you for warning him for the danger of what he wants to do. And then you can tell him, you know what, maybe it's better to build your house another place. Every human being should be open to constructive criticism and redirection. I said constructive criticism. I'm not talking about people want to dump on you and tear you apart just to relieve themselves. I'm talking about constructive redirection. Constructive criticism is to constructively redirect you to better. Every human being must be open for that. A human being is not open for constructive redirection. Not only are they stubborn, but they are dangerous because they will insist on something that's not going to benefit them, that's going to bring harm both on them and other people. Now, when you're dealing with a narcissist, that's exactly what a narcissist is doing. Let's say that you and your narcissist, you're both married. Okay? You're married to each other. And you have 3 kids. I'm just making up an example now. Suddenly, your wife tells you that she wants to go on a long holiday of 6 months just to find herself. But then you think, but dear, we have 3 children together. The children are between ages 5 and 10. The children need you here. You just want to go on a holiday, so-called find yourself. What does finding yourself mean? And then the husband checks the search results of Google. He goes into search history and he found out that she was booking trips to Asia and Latin America, near clubs and all of that. And he even found out that she was talking to several guys online, wanting to have sex hookups in foreign countries. So the husband confronts her. And the husband saying, hold on a minute, we are married. I thought we were in this together. Having a life together, building the community, being there for our children and grandchildren, and now you want to take a pause of a half a year to go whore around, possibly catching this sexual transmitted diseases. You have the risk of being kidnapped and all of that. I mean, forced into prostitution. You put yourself in danger just because you want to have a high, forfeiting your family and responsibilities over here and expecting to support you. Then the wife turns on you and saying, that's why our marriage sucks, because you never ever support me. You always think about yourself. It's all about you. What about me, me, me? Now, that's how the narcissist is. When they want something and they feel entitled to what they want, it's justified. Just because they feel entitled doesn't mean it's justified, but that's how it works with the narcissist minds. They feel entitled to something, that means they're entitled to it. No matter how much harm it may cause other people, no matter if it will even endanger themselves, they don't even care about their own safety nor their own sanity. They will it, so their will has to be worshipped. They will what they will, and everyone has to find a way to deal with what they will. That is a narcissist. Now, individual narcissists, they face limits in daily life. People saying no to them, or they can face prison sentences if they violate the laws of the land, or they may encounter other people that may fight back against them, and that may end up ugly. So the individual narcissist has daily restraints, so they'll behave themselves. But every time they behave themselves and they don't escalate, they will hold it against you. Let's say that your wife didn't cuss you out and escalate against you when you were talking about football. She only is innocent in herself. She doesn't care about anything or anyone else, but she faked being interested in you. And now, years later, when you're complaining about her behavior, she says, don't you remember all the time you were talking bullshit about football and always listen to your crap? Now she's attacking you. Oh, but when it's her talking, you have to shut up and listen to her. I agree with everything she's saying. It's a one-way street. Blind, unconditional support towards them, but you're not entitled to any support from them. That is a narcissist. Now, that's how society operates. Haven't you noticed that? Anytime society comes with a new legislation or a new law, or they come with some new, some change that they expect, anytime society as a collective comes up with something, they expect you to always understand it, to always comply, and to always put up with it. They expect blind support from you. The moment you question, let's say you have a right reason to question something. Let's say you question something with facts. They will call you a conspiracy theorist, or they will tell you to shut up. Who do you think you are? Will nobody ask for your opinion or whatever? They begin to attack you. When society wants something, you as an individual, the only role you have is to shut up and comply. You're only allowed to speak when they give you permission to speak, and when you have permission to speak, you have to tell them what they want to hear. That is society. Blind support. How many of you experienced this backlash from society when you questioned something that was questionable? Let me know in the live chat. I'll give you 1 minute to answer. Let me know. So that's how it goes. Think about it. What if you're exhausted of going to work every day? And if your doctor is telling you you need to take some rest because you've been working a lot, but you still have rent to pay and bills to pay. Let's say you ask your boss for 2 months leave. Your boss likely will not agree with it. If you ask relatives to support you for those 2 months that you don't have work, they likely will say, I'm sorry, I can't do it. You're a grown man or you're a grown woman. You're have to be responsible for yourself. But those same people, let's say your employer at work expects you to be on time and to give your full to the work. Your relatives expect you to have empathy and sympathy for them and to be ready for them. But when it's time for them to put things aside for you, either they become resentful, or if they do it, they will hold it against you later on. But a lot of folks don't want to admit that they're being narcissistically abused by those around them. Society narcissistically abuses you to go into complying with its will. And commoners enact society just to get relief. Haven't you noticed that anytime something goes wrong in society, they say, well, this is just the way society is, but isn't it the public that enacts society? So isn't it them enacting this thing called society? So if society is cruel, it means that the public are enacting a cruel atmosphere. So you have to hold the public accountable, but the public also has the Dutch responsibility. That's how it goes. Blind support. Now it's very simple. Either you become born again, renewed in your mind, you serve Christ, and you have a leverage over the world or society, or you end up having to cope with this narcissistic abuse by the group. Pagans cope very well because they have relief through paranormal aid. But it's still just relief. They're not delivered from narcissistic abuse. They only cope with it without it harming them too much. The believer, on the other hand, has the power granted them by the Heavenly Father to overcome the violence of society. Because that's how it goes. If you're not walking by faith, you end up having to cope with the violence of society. It's as simple as that. So everyone that's not walking by faith, they're coping with the violence of society. As simple as that. Some cope by being very mean and misanthropic and antisocial. That's how they avoid being vulnerable because they're afraid of being vulnerable. Others cope by being extreme people pleasers, always pleasing other people at their own expense. Others cope by drinking, doing drugs, or smoking all the time. Then others cope with working all the time so that they can earn a pat on the back. Everyone out there is coping with the violence of fallen mankind. All of the people do. Whether perpetrators, enablers, or the victims, they all are coping with it. The only ones that can escape this coping are believers who walk by faith. So that is why, as a saint, you have no business being yoked with unbelievers. Well, because as a saint, you have power to get things done in life. So why are you getting yoked with unbelievers if you have power to get things done? Look, it's very simple. Either you walk by faith and you're safe, or you have to, or you're being blackmailed to appease the violence of the crowd. It's one of the two. Either you're blackmailed, you're under a threat to appease the masses, or you're walking by faith and you're safe. So when the world tells you to stand up for yourself and to stand your ground, it's a trap. Because without the power of the Holy Spirit, you cannot overcome their violence. So anytime you fight back, you're already triggering more retaliation on you. And if you fight back and you win, they will hold it against you that you fought back. Anytime you fight back, when you're being victimized, the public will hold it against you because they feel bothered by you fighting back. Because when you fought back, they had to face that bad things will happen to their community. So they're going to blame you, the victim that fought back, for the fact that their ease has been disturbed. They want to be left alone at all costs. And they expect you, even when you're victimized, to support their stupid will. They have stupid wills and stupid expectations and expect you to support them no matter what. That is society. And I'm very, very shocked at how easy worldlings surrender to this thing called society. I'm talking about people with high IQs, high emotional intelligence. They make excuses for this thing called society. They make excuses for the crowd. Well, I'm not doing that anymore. I used to in my teenage years because I didn't see clearly yet how society really is, how the world really is, I mean. What what the Bible calls the world in secular in daily life we call society. Society is the world local. I'm done making excuses for the crowd. Okay, if there are homeless people in a community, that can happen. Some people become homeless because of their own bad behavior. Unfortunately, some people are homeless because it's not because of them, because a narcissistic spouse kicked them out or the parents abused them and had to run away. So some people become homeless because of victimization. It's not their own fault they're homeless. Anyway, you have homeless people. Let's say you have 2,000 homeless people in a community. At the same time, there are 10 prisons with a capacity of 40,000. And most of those prisons are empty. Now ask yourself, why did the community allow the government to build 8 extra prisons that are not needed? While there are 2,000 homeless people in the community, why not build a few extra houses and provide new jobs for the people that are homeless? Now, homeless people, you have them here and there. But if a community has a chronic issue with homeless people, that's not an excuse. That means that the public is in on it. Very simple. It's very weird that a lot of people that hold on to right-wing propaganda, they're very upset with illegal migration. A lot of migrants polluting their community. But they're not concerned with the homeless people amongst them, from their own people. They're blaming everything on the illegal migration, as if it's the illegal migration that's causing the homelessness amongst them. But that's how they do it in the world. Never expect a long-term solution from the world. Never. Because there is no such thing as a long-term solution in the world. The world is only about getting relief. That's the only thing the world's about. So that is why the psychopath at least has an advantage over all the other people, sometimes even above believers. Why? Again, I'm not supporting psychopaths, absolutely not. But psychopaths often, including sociopaths, those two often have an advantage above other people. And often the psychopath or sociopath, they even succeed in life. And when they do stupid stuff, they often get away successfully. You know why? Because the psychopath and sociopath, they are at least practical about one thing. There's one thing those monstrous people are practical about. They will never write themselves off just to please other people. If they please other people, they must be included. There must be some benefit in it for them too, because they matter too. Psychopaths and sociopaths are very narcissistic. They're quite dangerous people because they're very unstable. So I'm not supporting people being not sociopaths or psychopaths, but at least the sociopath and psychopath have one practical attitude. They will never write off their own well-being and their own long-term sanity just to please the crowd. They will never erase themselves just to make others happy. But don't you realize that that's what most people do on a daily basis? Erasing themselves just to keep others happy? Including those people who are so-called selfish and standing up for themselves, including people who say no all the time. The only reason saying no all the time is to prove themselves that they have boundaries or whatever. So even that is to please other people. Most people out there, including the people who so-called say no all the time, including them, they are erasing themselves to keep others happy because they know that if they keep reminding people about them, people are going to be upset with them. So they thought it's better to, if you erase yourself, just get along, you get rewards. And that's what a lot of people do, erasing themselves. And later in life, they realize that erasing themselves did not benefit them at all, because the people they submitted to, they are becoming older, they're dying and passing away, and now they're the ones that wasted decades pleasing people that were not able to do anything for them. Look, I'm not saying that you shouldn't consider other people. I'm not saying that you just all have to do whatever you want, everyone else has to find a way to deal with it. No, you should consider other people. And that you make some arrangement on behalf of other people, that you give up something just for the common good, that's fine. God promotes all of that. But what the Heavenly Father does not promote is you erasing yourself just so that others are not upset. If you came from an abusive household and now as an adult you have all types of issues haunting you, well, that's reality, that's you. Society expects you to forget that it was society that allowed you to go through stuff, that society enabled those reprobate parents of yours. Society wants you to forget about their contribution and their neglect so that they can be at ease. They expect you to blame yourself for everything that happened to you and to make them at ease all the time at your own expense. And a lot of people fall for it when society tells them nobody owes you anything. Or people then your society tells them nobody can take advantage of you unless you allow it. Oh, so if a 2-year-old is taken advantage of by a sex predator, oh, then the 2-year-old allowed it. Are you kidding me? So society will gaslight you and blame you for what they allowed to happen to you or what they did to you so they can be at ease. And a lot of people get along with that, blaming themselves, erasing their own sanity just to please the crowd. And this is something that the sociopath and psychopath will never, ever do. They will not. And when the sociopath and psychopath realize that people are insisting on them erase themselves, the psychopath and sociopath knows very well that if they keep on refusing, the crowd is going to turn on them and lynch them. Or if the crowd does not lynch them, the crowd will make life hard on them and set them up to go to prison or whatever. So the psychopath and sociopath knows, okay, I'm not going to raise myself just to please other people. So people can come after me, so you know what? I need to take advantage of these people so that I have a leverage over them. So if one day they decide to turn on me, I can use that leverage to shut them down. That's the fearful, self-defensive attitude of the psychopath and the sociopath. Now, I don't endorse a self-defensive, fearful attitude of the sociopath and psychopath, but at least they're practical. The sociopath and psychopath, they're cunning people because they want to have a leverage over other people, so that if the crowd decides to turn on them, they can use things against the crowd to shut the crowds down. So that is the practical attitude of the sociopath and psychopaths. And that's why often sociopaths and psychopaths, they last longer. Despite being unstable and disturbing creatures, despite being creeps, they last longer. Andrew, I don't know what you mean with your question. Please be specific. That's why sociopaths and psychopaths last longer in general, because when they see clearly that people come with narcissistic expectations, I mean, I talk about the crowd, they make excuses. And they make sure they can take advantage of the crowds so that the crowd cannot turn on them easily. What a sociopath and psychopath does is that they play the victim to get sympathy, or they play the victim so that people will expose themselves. And once people expose narcissistic tendencies, now the psychopath and sociopath will use it against those people. That's how they blackmail people into complying with them. That's what the sociopath and psychopath does as a survival mechanism. The sociopath and psychopath is all about survival. They have an extreme survival mindset. And again, They do a lot of harm to themselves and other people, so I don't approve of their attitudes, but the attitude at least is practical. The common individual out there is often not practical at all. They're only practical when they cross the street or when they're cooking or when they have to be on time for work. Only with necessities are they practical. When it comes to actually living and long-term safety, the crowd is not smart at all. A lot of people out there, they erase themselves by submitting to this 9 to 5 bullshit of the world, and then they look for someone to escalate upon. That's what all society is doing. And the psychopath and sociopath sees this and they think, hold on a minute. This work of 9 to 5 is something you're forced into since you were a little child. Why don't you fight back and to get your freedom? But no, you guys get along because it's the easiest thing to do. But when you are suffering the consequence, now you want to dump on someone. So the psychopath clearly sees through the narcissistic attitude of the masses. Now, never confront a sociopath nor a psychopath because they can't handle that. They're going to become explosive, and they may explode on you and harm you physically or kill you, or they may explode on someone else, or they may commit suicide, and then people blame you for it. So don't get involved with sociopaths and psychopaths. I'm only using them as an example that they are more practical than many people out there, and that's why they often last longer. The sociopath that's using romance scams ends up more healthy in daily life, and he lives longer in physical health than the one that is working hard and earning money honestly. The one that works hard from 9 to 5, sometimes 50 hours a week, pays taxes, and shuts up and gets along with society once, they're likely to contract diseases like cancer or tumors, or they get exhausted, or they get mental issues, and they die around age 70. While the sociopath that uses romance scams, whatever, he may end up turning 100 years old in, without much physical harm because he at least escaped the daily exploitation of society. When you have questions, please let it be clear and let it be related to this topic, please. Thank you very much. Look, I'm not here to promote psychopaths, sociopaths. Absolutely not. Because those are very unstable and creepy beings. And they have no business ending up like that. They can become born again and redeemed anytime. What I'm telling you is that just because those psychopaths and sociopaths are disturbing creatures doesn't mean that you can't learn from them. The opposite of a psychopath is a chronic is a the opposite of a psychopath is a covert narcissist who just please other people, just be left alone. So that's not a good place to be either. Now, the covert narcissist, just like the psychopath, manages to escape bad situations, but the covert narcissist ends up being trapped more easily because the covert narcissist gets along still with a lot of stuff that doesn't benefit them. And this is why, when it comes down to it, a lot of worldlings prefer a sociopath to be in charge. Why would worldlings prefer a sociopath to be in charge? Because the sociopath sees things clearly, and when things really are out of line, the sociopath will call things out. If you have an employer who's a sociopath and their customers have come and treats the staff like crap, the sociopath will turn on those customers and ban them. While commoners who are employers may try to make excuses for those rude customers and blame the staff members. But the sociopath will see clearly, hold on a minute. You come to my restaurant, you come to my shop, and you treat my stuff like shit, and you expect high treatment. What is this? When it comes to a country, the reason the masses prefer to have a sociopath leading them is because, look at this. Let's say that you have foreigners that want to build factories in the country, but those foreigners just want to import a lot of migrants from their own homelands to come and work in the factories. So they're just using the resource of the country to benefit another country. And the locals there are left out. So the sociopath, who's a politician, will decide, hold on a minute, you guys come from China, and you guys want to build factories over here, but you want to import a lot of Chinese folks working for your company, so you want to make money off of country, while the locals here have difficulties finding a job. Look, even though I'm a sociopath and I'm not really, I don't really have empathy for other people, or not even for myself, I cannot approve this. You just want to come to this country, take advantage of us, and just leave without any responsibility towards us. So the sociopath will force those foreign investors to give tribute to the locals. While a commoner who's in such a position will often just want to be left alone, so they will just tolerate a lot of stuff. Am I saying that the sociopath is preferable? No. The sociopath is a very disturbing individual. You shouldn't even be involved with such people. But at least they, when it comes down to it, they're very practical when things are getting out of hand. Commoners make a lot of excuses. Sociopaths do not make excuses. Well, they make excuses for themselves when they're doing wrong, but when they see that something doesn't add up, they don't make excuses for the situation. They acknowledge what it is, and they know they have to take action to make sure things get better or the bad situation is shut down. The crowd is narcissistic, and sociopaths and psychopaths clearly see this. That's why they resent the crowd, but at the same time, they realize that they need the crowd because they're human beings. So they at least want to deal with the crowd on their terms, not on the terms of the crowd. That's the sociopath and psychopath. Now, if the sociopath and psychopath were reprobates, if they are practical enough to deal with the masses on their terms, why is it that there are believers just get along with all the terms of society? Society tells you, don't cuss, don't use swear words, always obey the laws, always say yes sir, yes ma'am, always do this and that. Society comes with a load of expectations that society cannot account for. And a lot of believers just want to upset other people, they just get along. Now, there's a difference with getting along to de-escalate tension. That's why Christ pays taxes, for example, because if they wouldn't pay taxes, it would cause a lot of controversy and unnecessary conflict. So there's a difference between getting along for practical reasons and erasing yourself just to benefit a narcissistic crowd that's self-destructive. There's a big difference between the two. Now, we should practically get along with practical matters. Even psychopaths and sociopaths do that. Okay? But so we as believers should do that too. But we should never, ever erase our own well-being and the well-being of those around us just to please the crowd. And that's the advantage, or that's the leverage that psychopaths and sociopaths have upon believers. Because the psychopath and sociopath, when they see that the crowd is escalating on them, expecting them to give blind support, they opt out, or they fake giving them blind support just to take advantage of the crowd. Now, we as saints, we should be much smarter and much more intelligent than the reprobates. We are because we're serving Christ. But why don't we act out this intelligence we have? The sociopath and psychopath, they do criminal activity just so they can have financial leverage. Because the sociopath and psychopath sees in this world, if you don't have financial leverage, you're doomed. You end up having to be enslaved and tossed around by other people. And the psychopath and sociopath clearly sees that the world bends over to this fiction called money, and that governments are making it hard for you to get money. So either you have to work very hard from 9 to 5, or you have to sell your ass in prostitution, or you have to sell drugs, or do some other criminal things. But easy money the government doesn't allow it. So the sociopath and psychopaths, They do the criminal stuff, and then they use legal means to launder the money, and then they're at ease. That's what a sociopath and psychopath does. They're very practical people. Psychopaths and sociopaths will conform, but only for practical reasons. Now look, why is it that saints are so conforming and so pleasing to all the demands of society? Now the sociopath and psychopaths, they lack empathy, so they go very far to preserve themselves. So I'm not supporting that. But why is it that believers keep on justifying all the restrictions of society? Look, you have malignant narcissists who just take advantage of other people. The sociopath and psychopath, they take advantage of people for the long term. So a sociopath may not go put a gun to someone's face and rob them in the streets. No, but they will go into the corporate world, scamming whole corporations of a lot of money. Because in their thinking, this is a building. It's not a human being that has needs and feelings. It's just a building and a construct. If I take advantage of a construct, I didn't directly harm anyone. So they scam corporations, businesses, all type of folks. They even scam wealthy people out of a lot of money, and then they live off of it. And because they live off the money, they're not pressured into exhausting themselves from 9 to 5. Sociopaths and psychopaths are very practical people. That's why when young people lack proper role models, they turn to sociopathic criminals. That's why gangsters are so praised by a lot of young men. Because a lot of young men who come from broken families see that their own fathers are wimps, just take everything from society. And a lot of times those wimpy fathers who take everything from society is taken out on their own children. So those young men from broken families clearly see that those gangsters that make a lot of money, that they're more realistic and sane than the common individual. And that is why a lot of young people look up to figures like Al Capone or Pablo Escobar or El Chapo. Why are so many young men, so that even young women look up to sociopathic criminals? It's because many of the so-called good people in daily life are out of their minds. I mean, if you have to choose between siding with a sociopathic criminal that at least allows you to make thousands of dollars profit, or you need to be milked out and exhausted for 50 years long, from 9 to 5, only having 2-3 weeks free each year. You're not allowed to have your voice, you're not allowed to have an opinion, you're not allowed to even exist, but only on the terms of the group. Would you rather put up with a group where you have to be exhausted for 50 years long, only having 4 weeks a year for yourself, and you only get the compensation at the end of each month just to stay alive? Or would you side with a sociopathic criminal where at least you have abundance and you have ease? Now, a lot of young men prefer the second option, because with the second option, you at least have options in life. You can quit the criminal activity when you want and disappear. And because you have a lot of money, you can make false passports, false IDs, and disappear also. But when you get along in society, you don't have much leverage. So you can't just say, okay, I'll stop working for a while, or I'll just move away. You can't. Yes, indeed. Society is a scam. Just like Dixon is saying in the live chat, what we've been told about right and wrong is based on society's and family expectations. So that's all a lie. Look, it's natural that you don't go out and harm other people. It's natural that you consider the safety of other people. But it's unnatural that just to please the crowd, you allow them to take advantage of you. That's unnatural. But that's what the common individual does. bending over so the crowd can take advantage of them. And they even take the excuses that they deserve it that happens to them. Now look, I am not promoting you to become a sociopathic criminal. Absolutely not. So you'll never hear me say that. I'm just pointing out that just like the sociopathic criminals are practical, we as saints should be far more practical than they are. And look at this. We have the power of the Holy Spirit to decree and declare outcomes. So why aren't we using the power inside of us to have a leverage in daily life? Don't you know that many of those sociopathic criminals are very horrified when they see believers? Because many of those sociopathic criminals, they use demonic aids to get to cover them and to protect them from the violence of the people. So many of those sociopathic criminals, when they see believers going to church every Sunday, over and over again, being scammed by those pastors who are often criminals in disguise, those sociopathic criminals thinking, what? Those people claim to serve the Savior, the risen Lord. They claim to follow the Heavenly Father, yet they allow Satan to rape their behinds all day long. They make excuse for Satan and the demons to take advantage of them through those other people, saying, well, this is Satan's world, or Satan has legal rights. They even say that Satan has a kingdom. Don't you realize that many of those sociopathic criminals are horrified and even faint when they see this weird behavior from believers? And that's why when those sociopathic criminals crash down and surrender to Christ and they become believers, they are far, far more on fire than any other believer out there. Look, you have people that used to be wizards, or that used to be high-level warlocks in the demonic working for Satan. And when they became born again, they were exposing all the stuff of the demonic realm, and they were even telling if believers would realize the power they had, they would be the ones running the nations. So then you also have people who used to be haunted by evil and haunted by violence so much that they had no other choice but to rely on Christ, and they're also quite on fire. So it's either the victims that were almost exterminated, they become very hot for the Lord, or those who were deeply involved in the dark side. Both of them become very hot once they turn to the Lord. So look, what I'm telling you here is that as a saint, you ought to walk in power. When you don't walk in power, but you get along with being raped by society and being ripped off by society, it will confuse a lot of people out there. Even devil worshippers will be confused, thinking, why are those people who have power from God allowing all this to happen to them? Why are they allowing all this bad stuff to happen to their communities? What's going on here? So, always walk in power. Look, there's a difference between being meek and going the extra mile with other people and enabling violence by erasing yourself. We deny ourselves for Christ by submitting to his ways. We do not erase ourselves for society. Either you deny yourself by submitting to Christ's guidance, or you erase yourself so society can take advantage of you. It's one of the two. Either you erase yourself and society has an easy way exploiting and ripping you off, or you deny yourself and you receive power from God and God leads you. It's one of the two. So when Christ said to deny yourself, to pick up your cross and follow him, was actually saying, surrender yourself to my guidance, and then you'll have life in abundance. That's what Christ was saying. The world's telling you, The world's actually telling you to spread your legs and make it easy for them to enter you, or else they will do it with force at your expense. That is society. Society wills what it wills, and if you even say something back without them asking for it, you get smacked. Yet, the majority of people out there, they make excuses for society. But when you as a believer walk in power and you enforce things on the earth, now they tell you, hey, well, you can't just force things on the earth. That's raping people. That's you go against people's free will. Oh, but society is smacking them around and exploiting them every day, but they're okay with that. So those people that resist believers are a big joke. That's what they are. Mhm. So that is what I had for this live stream. Beware of blind support. Society will always demand blind support from you. I'm not saying you can't support other people. You should, but always be responsible with how you support them. If someone wants to do something that totally will not benefit them, don't support it. Or if someone wants to do something that will backfire on them later on, don't support it. Redirect them. If they don't want to be redirected, shake those off your feet and move on. Never blindly support society, nor any church, or whatever. And the Heavenly Father doesn't even need your support. So the Heavenly Father wants you to support other believers. And it's the Heavenly Father that unconditionally supports you, because the Heavenly Father will redirect you anytime you're wrong. You get me? So rely on God's oath that God made on your behalf, that God will preserve you forever, because God will redirect you when necessary. And you let your support be Christ-centered. Well, I'm within 1 hour and 40 minutes, I'll do another live stream. So I'm going to take a break now. How about see you within 1 hour and 15 minutes? When we get some lunch. Keep on dreaming with Christ, and be at peace, you all. Till next time.